So before we wrap up, we got a lot of questions. So I would love for us to go through some of these questions, talk about some stuff that people asked. And so what's going to happen, folks, is if you use !Q and ask a question, write down over here in this area somewhere, we're going to go ahead and pop up the message of the person and talk a little bit more about it. So let's go ahead and start with this one. Sure, let's do this. So this comes from KP. Hey, CJ, can you see this, by the way?
I can.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, from K Petty. What do you think? What do you guys think of how long the current programming languages will be in production? I mean, there are a lot of dead languages out there. You want to take that, CJ?
Sure. Languages will continue to exist as long as they're needed, and especially like you have to think about legacy applications. I deal with that a lot lately, where like even if that particular language isn't used to build new things anymore, there are programmers that still have to support the old thing that people are still using before it gets rewritten in whatever is new or whatever. So I mean, like I guess a classic example might be something like PHP. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, PHP is still relevant. People still build things with PHP, but they're moving to other things as well, like Node.js or even .NET. And so there are a lot of older PHP apps that people still have to support. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I pretty much agree with you. Again, like I think it's the third time I brought it up, but there are so many languages out there. There's so many different tools. People get really overwhelmed by the fact that there's so much to use. Just use the tool that best fits your need. And as you start going through things, you'll realize that maybe this was better, that's better, but you have to learn it. You can't just, go into it and expect to be incredible at it. So yeah, that was great. That was great. Awesome. What else we got here? This is a good one. From Simo, what is your first junior project?
Cool. Me or you?
You go ahead. Yeah, we can kind of do it. If it's not specific towards a person, you go ahead and then I can answer as well.
Works for me.
Yeah.
The first project that I remember was actually when I was in college. So I was in university. I got a computer science degree, nice. But I was working as the desk person in the psychology department. So like I would answer the phones, I would get the mail. Yeah. But the head of the psychology department there actually had a background in computer science. And so he asked me to build this thing that somebody wanted. They were like, they've asked other people to build it before. Yeah. It always like never works out. Do you think you could do it? I was like, sure. I barely remember what it was really even about, but it was something about like you're collecting. There was a bunch of data that was in spreadsheets. It had to be loaded in, and then on the web page, you needed to be able to like select the data on it. Okay. And then there also needed to be some sort of like back-end dashboard where they could see the results. I guess it's really wishy-washy, but that was the project that I worked on. And that was before like I really even knew like how to program. So a lot of it was in JavaScript. I kind of just like figured it out along the way. Yeah. I remember like copying and pasting and like formatting an Excel spreadsheet into JavaScript code into like arrays of strings, rather than like using a CSV parser or something like that. Yeah. And I also found like a PHP script that managed the backend side of things. I don't know. I realize it's not very specific, but like that was the first project. It was somebody needed it. I figured out how to build it, and then it worked. So
yeah, I mean that's how they usually start, right? You're just like, well, either I come up with it or someone asked me to do it. So yeah, I think that's great. Mine kind of was a bit along those lines, but not really. I've always been really interested in iOS apps in general. So when I was in college, the first app that I made was called Cycles Daily Habit Creator. Never built an iOS app in my life. Took like a intro to computer science course, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna build this thing. And it was just a way to keep track of your habits. So for example, if you want to drink water 8 times a day, get these kind of scheduled notifications depending on how you do things, and put them throughout the day at times where you will actually complete them. So I built it from scratch. It took me 1.5 years because I did not know how to do anything. The literally a to-do list app with a little bit of fancy notifications is what it was.
Cool.
But it was incredible. I launched it, and like it was it's still my most like, I think my highlight app right now, because people still download it to this day. They still use it, and I think that's I don't know, it's really incredible to see that people are excited to use things that you build.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mention really quick, like that was not a part of an official job. That was just like, I mean, technically the person I was working for asked me to build it, but like that wasn't a coding job. My first real thing in the real world was a C# desktop application, which was for data visualization. And like I didn't start the project. I was just a developer on the project.
Yeah.
I actually took over as the lead after about 6 months being on that job, which was
nice.
Horrifying. like the fact that it's all my absolutely terrifying. It's all my responsibility now. But I mean, I learned a ton. I'll say like on that project actually taught me about like how serious software is built, and taught me about object-oriented programming, and really how to structure things when you just have such a massive code base. Because before that, I had no idea that like how any of that could work, or how all these things would relate. So that was my first real world project.
Yeah, I love that. I think you just learned so much. Like in my app, I had no idea how to do a database, so I did all local storage on this thing, and I was like, how is this gonna work? And it worked. Not very well, but it worked. Awesome. Yeah, let's move on to a few others here. This one from Rosette Beards. Do you feel that teaching lower level programming has made growth as a developer stagnant? Do you feel out of date as a result of this career path? I think that's definitely more of a question for you, CJ.
Sure. No, and so I think I guess I didn't mention it earlier, but I still just do this teaching thing in my spare time. So I work as a software consultant, and I have chief in my title. I'm not like a CEO or CTO or anything like that, but I'm the chief full stack engineer. I came up with that title. They said you need a new title. I came up with it. I was
that
like,
is fantastic.
Like, I still code. I don't really want you to call me an architect, even though I'm technically like doing some architecture. Call me a chief full stack engineer. So like, and I actually still write real world code. Like I get to do that as my day job. And then in my spare time, I do this teaching thing. So I definitely haven't stagnated, or if that's a word. I haven't become stagnant. But the other thing about like teaching this beginner stuff is also like learning the newer stuff sooner. Like, because in the real world, you typically have a very large application that already all the technologies have been chosen, and you kind of just build the thing. And if it takes a year or two to build, there may have been some new stuff that has come onto the scene since then. And usually you're kind of, if you're only working on work stuff, you're behind because you're still supporting that thing. But now I get to try new things all the time. And so I am not out of date because of the fact that I'm teaching the newer beginner stuff, I would say.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never thought about it like that. So definitely a lot of fun. Sweet. Yeah, there's a quick, easy one that we can both answer here.
Let's do it.
From Life Cats. In how many years have you been programming for?
I'd say like a little over 15 years for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I usually like to go with the idea of I've been programming professionally for 3 years, and in total I've been programming for 5 years.
Cool. Professionally is about 9 years. Well, I guess it's closer to 10 at this point. I'm using the same answer I used a year ago, but like 9-ish years. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Air quotes professionally. I love that. Yes. All right. What else we got here? This is a great one too. From Ouchie Talks. Any major challenges when becoming a teacher? Definitely for you.
Cool. I think the biggest thing for me that you must develop, or at least like recognize as a teacher, is empathy. Like you need to be able to put yourself in the shoes of your students, and you need to be able to realize all of this, I guess all of the things that you already know, because we take that for granted. Like we've been doing this for so long, and we know so many things, and we kind of take for granted the fact that we know all of these things. And so when you're teaching a beginner, you have to remember that they don't have that background knowledge. So that's very major. Is like basically and it's if you're familiar with the term like beginner's mind, like basically don't assume anything, try to empathize with someone that potentially has none of the background knowledge that you have. And yeah, and I guess I don't know if that's, I've gotten really good at it is what I'll say, but I guess for some people that might be like a really good, a big challenge to overcome, is basically realizing that there's so much that you already know that you basically have to forget about or teach the person that you're trying to teach because they don't have that background knowledge.
Yeah. Oh man, I love the first thing you said. I think that really speaks volumes, because you have to realize that people are not on the same level as you, and how do you adapt to that?
Right.
Cool. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, I also, like, especially in a workplace, like, I think you kind of have to be careful about it. Like, for me, I don't assume anything. So, like, sometimes I'll be talking to a coworker and potentially explain things that they already know. It's not that I'm trying to be condescending. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. And so, like, I have to be really, really careful with that. And I think most people realize, because I'm nice about it. It's not like I'm mansplaining, I guess the term is.
Sure.
But I kind of approached it that way in all of my life, is don't assume anything, you know, and just do what you can. I don't know.
Yeah, it's how I think right now, especially in the United States, it's a big thing that we should all learn. Just learn, grow, have an open mindset, and learn. That's really what we can
listen
to. Yeah, exactly. Listen. Awesome. Cool. Let's this is a great one for you, CJ, as well, from NFG Codex. What would you say has been the biggest struggle for you both in life and in your career?
Sounds like an interview question. Pass. No, I don't know.
Come back later.
No. Yeah. Biggest struggle. I don't know. I guess potentially balancing home life and work life, because so for me, like, I'm coding all the time. Like, I'm coding when I'm streaming, coding when I'm at work, and I've been living with my partner, I guess, like close to a year now, and I have to make sure that I make the time to be with her and, like, not just like talk about my job or talk about the live streaming and the coding. So, like, it might be the opposite problem that people have, because they may not. I'm basically addicted to code. Like, I talk about code all the time. I write code all the time. So the struggle, the struggle for me is turning it off. And I hope I'm doing. I don't know if my partner is watching right now, but I hope I'm doing better. But that's for me, is like turning off and like basically having time with my partner, time with myself. That is not work. Is not coding. Yes. Yeah.
No, I love that question. The big thing on my mind, just to add in on this for a more like as a corporate job, the mindset of work-life balance. I never had that before. I still probably don't have it a lot now, but I'm a lot more specific about things I do and when I do them. So, because I think I'm like you, I'm coding all the time. Like, my preferred Friday night is sitting down and being like, yo, let's build this thing. Let's have fun. Let's, even hang out with people in chat or like Discord type deal. And let's all work on a project together. I've always really enjoyed that, but cool. Yeah. Great answer. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this one. So this is from Unhot. For me, there's a trade-off between project, complexity and speed at which someone can comprehend what you're doing. What do you do to combat this? Yeah, Anha, this is something that we talked about a lot. It's really hard to really bring someone into a brand new project, especially like an app that we're working on, Groovy, which has been in production or in development for 182 days. There's a lot of backstory there, right? So the people that were there from the beginning and will know more about that. But I think the biggest thing that I can do is I try to be very active with people that join in and say, hey, please, if you have any questions, answer them. I'm more than happy to stop what I'm doing, give you a quick TLDR on what's going on, and let's go ahead and talk about this thing and the concepts around why I chose things. People love to ask why I decided to use Golang instead of something like Node.js for some things that I'm working on, and I always find that a really interesting question, so I love talking about that. But yeah, CJ, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I guess I try to do the same thing as like ask questions if you have them. I'm going to do my best to answer them. But it is tricky because the more complex it gets, the more background knowledge you need. It gets harder to get up to speed. So
yeah, definitely. All right, this is a great one from Chad. Is Alco a real person or a robot? Can we get a confirmation, please, CJ?
Both.
What?
Yeah. So I mean, the Alka literally his user account is a bot. So he's both. Both. Yeah. If you go in my chat and you just if you just type Alka, he'll respond to you. It says hi, CodingGarden.
Oh my gosh. Alka.
And so he's on 24/7. Actually, I think the real Alka is probably sleeping right now. He's on an interesting sleep schedule, unless he's in the chat. He was in the chat earlier. Oh no, he's here. I see him. He's here. That's the real Alka.
Alka, hello. You're real. You're not hybrid. Okay, good to know. That makes I think a lot of people are probably wondering that. So great question. Cool. Yeah. Next one's from Ed. So this is one that I've thought about as well. What would you change in the current situation with live streaming programming to move forward? Enhance some particular aspect that is lacking, that is actually realistically possible right now. So essentially, how can we push live programming streaming forward?
Yeah. And if we're talking about like what's possible right now, it's tricky.
Yep.
I mean, I think the first thing is just to get it in front of more people's eyes. Like a lot of people don't know that this exists. So there's that. It's just like making people aware that this is a thing that they can tune into and be a part of.
Yeah.
I don't know how we do that. I mean, I'm trying the best that I can with the platforms I have, but yeah. I don't know. What about you? I guess I'll think while you're answering, I'll try to think about maybe something more technological we can do. I don't know.
Yeah, I personally don't think of technology as the first thought that comes to mind about this. I think more of it's really just the making it known to people. So one of the big things that I've been really trying to push for is everyone nowadays is connected in technology at some point. Either through a phone, through a TV, laptop, whatever. We're all doing something on a computer. So I'm almost positive almost everyone has thought about this idea of how does this actually work? Like there's not like, is there a little fairy in here that just does and then it's done, right? So if someone has that tiny spark, how do we get that person to come to programming? How do we get that person to come watch our streams and be like, oh my God, and have that aha moment that we talked about, right? It's like, whoa, you can build literally anything you want with this.
Yeah. And I think like for me, I think it actually comes from YouTube videos because there are actually quite a few people that have commented on my speedruns. They're like, I have no idea what's happening, but like I'm entertained or like, but I'm enjoying it. So like, I'll share this in the chat. One of the, so I've done a collaboration with Coding Train before. So this is close to 2 years ago, but the app I built, I called it a Twitter clone. It's nowhere near a Twitter clone. I built it in an hour and a half from scratch for the most part. I mean, I use libraries, but part of building it was explaining the whole process. And so I drew diagrams. I was like, this is the front end, this is the back end, this is how they communicate, this is where the data is stored, this is how we actually implement that. And there are a lot of people that find that video and it's like their first introduction to like how all this stuff works.
Awesome.
So I think like YouTube is potentially a way. Like if you can create a little nugget, a clip of something that they might experience on some live stream platform, then that might be one way to get them over.
Yeah, I think that's a great point for sure. Huh. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, good question. I always like questions like that. I think there's a lot to unpack there. So the next two that we have, this was the Twitter clone that you put in there. Yeah, so go check that out if you're interested to see more about that from CJ for sure. The next two are actually from K Petty. And so I'm just going to kind of do one and then the other. The first one was in regards to the financial side of things. And I know that this is something that we can definitely maybe touch on. I think in general, it's more of a personal preference and where you are in your life, of course. But how about the financial side? Subscription, ads, donations, or any other new solutions like pair programming with people that are watching?
Yeah, my answer is all the things, like diversify. So I turned off ads on my YouTube. So I don't have ads on there.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't think I want to talk about like my views on ads and how the current internet is basically like dependent on them. But because of that, I don't want my own content to be dependent on ads as well. And that's one of the things I really like about live streaming and the idea of the community is supporting me, right? It's not full-time income, but the community is providing support for the things that I'm providing. So I do like the idea of like donations, subscriptions. People can basically show their support in that way. Yeah. I've considered this, like the idea of, so I do pair programming with viewers, but right now it's you use channel points to redeem it, and we do it.
Yeah.
We were doing it once a month. Now we're doing it twice a month. But there are some people that potentially want more mentoring and more pairing than can be done like in an hour live stream.
Yeah.
And so that might become my other source of revenue. Like it's potentially, and it could potentially be live streamed. Like that person is paying me for tutoring hours, but we could also live stream it so that other people could benefit from it. But that person is technically the one that's funding it, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, and then, well, particularly for people that do tutorials, another source of income is creating courses, and so that's something that I want to do. I've just never gotten around to doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those are good questions, or good answers, I should say. It's always an interesting thing. I'm kind of on the same boat with you about ads. Something that we definitely don't have to talk about, but I kind of have the same thought process there. Cool. And then kind of to go off that from K Petty as well. Can you already public speaking? Or are you still, are you fine with public speaking now? Or are you still nervous when you public speak?
I mean, I'm always nervous before it happens. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Like it's, you have the butterflies in your stomach. I mean, and sometimes before a stream, I'll even feel that, like, but also it's like cognitive dissonance. Cause like, I'm just talking to myself in my head. Like, this is your stream. Like, why are you nervous? But it's a physical reaction that I cannot control.
Yes.
Exactly. So yes, it still happens. But I think the main thing is that I have the mindset that I understand that it will go away eventually. Like, I am not this feeling. This feeling is happening, but I am not this feeling, and it will go away eventually.
Man, that's honestly perfect. I am not this feeling. That's really, I think, if you take anything away from that, it's that. I would agree. Great thought there. And so we had a couple questions about the future of essentially people replacing robots replacing developers, which I found really interesting. So one we have, I'm going to put this one up. This one's in regards to Wix from Life Cats again. So will something like Wix replace developers? But we also had another one in regards to GPT-3. If any of you are not familiar with that, it is stunningly incredible how these things people are making these AI-driven apps via GPT-3. So yeah, any thoughts on that, CJ?
Yeah, I think so. Like an online site builder like Wix, there are other ones like it, Squarespace. Basically, drag and drop. Non-technical people can create websites. Yeah. That definitely replaced a certain type of web developer, right? Like that person no longer had to go find and pay someone to build that thing from scratch. So that kind of web developer potentially could be replaced. But yeah, you have to understand that there are things that cannot be done with drag and drop. At least right now, like maybe eventually artificial intelligence will be able to do things like it, but there are so many nuances when you're building something custom for a client, nuances in business logic, nuances in how they want the user experience to be, that you just can't exactly fit into a site builder. Those are the kind of apps that I build. Like I call myself a web developer, but I am a software engineer because I still have to architect the whole system. Like I'm building back-end things as well as front-end things. And I mean, you might say there are like API generators and there are things that will just like spin up a back-end for you. There's still some technical work that needs to happen for it. So
I really agree with you there. I think one of the big things that people fail to realize is it's gotten a lot easier to make a lot of these things. But you still should understand the underlying workings of what you just did, right? Because let's say you built this for a customer and they're like, cool, by the way, it broke. Can you fix it? And you're like, well, probably not. I have no idea what I just did. So I think that's a great point for sure.
Yeah, and I guess also along the idea, I mean, because humans have been talking about this for the longest time, like, will some specific thing replace workers of a certain kind? And there's always some new thing that pops up that isn't exactly automatable. And so those people that were doing that thing will just go do that other thing instead. Yeah,
no, totally. Yeah. Cool, CJ. So we have about 6 more questions. You cool with that?
Yeah, I got time.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right, cool. Yeah. Questions all day. So this one's coming from Coder in Black. What are the use cases for older languages like Java in the real world? I think it's interesting.
Okay. So like, I guess, Java is old. C# I guess is technically old. Like what is old? But Uh, so not to generalize, but you typically see things like Java or C# used in larger enterprises.
Yes.
Like in larger companies
Mm-hmm.
that are building bigger products or things that more developers have their hands on. That's not to say that's the only tool for the job, but that's typically where you see languages like this used.
Yeah.
But you absolutely could build a startup using Spring, which is a Java backend framework,
Yes.
or something like that. So um, I think I guess the answer is any general purpose programming language can still be used to build anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I totally agree with you. I was curious to see what you're going to say about that because
know.
old, I thought the same thing. It's like, old. Let's see what this means. But someone getting into programming now, I mean, they don't really see Java much, right? You can kind of say, hey, I want to build a website or I want to build a desktop app or a mobile app. Okay, cool. Use JavaScript. You can do literally every single one of those things, which is interesting. COBOL for life. COBOL
Yeah,
for life.
so someone in the chat mentioned like Java is very secure. I mean, like one thing you could think about is like the longer something has been around, the more
Yeah.
time people have had to break it and fix
Yep.
the things that were broken or like the security holes.
Yeah.
So that's potentially one reason like a large enterprise might choose something like Java or C#. That said,
Yeah.
you could build similar applications with Node.js.
Yep.
But I guess of course like you have to be aware of like what libraries are you using, are there potential vulnerabilities, different things like that. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And then again, my standing on a soapbox, just use the tool that works for you, right? If you know Java, just use Java and see how it goes. And then you can always reiterate. That's the great thing about software, right?
And Asset Spark says my company is still today making new things in Java. So
yeah, there
so
you go.
even though it's an old language, you can still build new things.
Yeah.
Like even like C++, like those are older language. I guess it feels weird saying old. they've been around a long time. They've been around a long time, but people still use them. You can still build useful things with them.
Yeah, I like to call it maybe foundational languages, right? Because a lot of these things were like they're a foundation to a lot of what programming is today.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Next one from Rant340. I always struggle when it comes to finding ideas for projects to work on. Any suggestions? I'd love to know your thoughts on this, CJ.
I always say choose something that you're passionate about because you will lose interest less quickly. I guess it's harder to lose interest if you're doing something that you want to exist. And for me, like that's most of what I build is like, I want there's a problem I have. There's nothing that's solving it right now, so I want to write code that's going to solve that specific thing. So that like your passions, like what are your hobbies? Try to build things around that. Second answer is just Google it. People have made blog posts with like 20 JavaScript app ideas that you can follow. So if you're really running out of ideas, just you can pick from one of those and build that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer. One of the things I get asked this question a lot, and one thing that I actually do is I keep a note inside my phone of just ideas that I randomly have. So if I'm walking down the street, all of a sudden I'm like, it'd be really cool if my shoes had speakers in them. Cool, like write that down in this note. And then when I'm interested in building something, I'm interested in trying to figure out what to build. That's it. I just pick from that. But it all goes around the idea of this kind of, I'm passionate about this thing that I want to build. And it's much easier to be excited about doing it, like you were saying. So yeah, hope that helped, Brent. Okay, we got one from Coder in Black. So I guess before we talk about this one, CJ, have you done Golang before?
Only in passing. I on my stream I do every Wednesday. We didn't do it this past Wednesday, but most Wednesdays we do code katas, which are coding challenges. And there was one day when someone was like, "You should use Golang," and so I did some very simple coding problems in Golang. But that's about my only exposure to it.
Okay, awesome. I definitely have picked it up a lot this past 180 days working on my app. So TLDR for me in regards to Golang, I think it's actually pretty incredible. I would probably replace this with Node.js for a lot of the things I build. I find it easier to use and a lot more systematic. And the fact where it's like you do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to get the outcome every single time. And you don't have to kind of worry about this weirdness of maybe in this async thing, this might happen. Or, this JavaScript thing that might end up playing a little weird sometimes. Those are my thoughts on that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cool. And then next one we have from Alpha SL. Alpha says, what are your opinions on overlays? I see CJ has a lot going on while Alex is more minimal. Yes, great question.
Yeah, I mean, all of the overlays that you see, for the most part, I built live on stream. And so I think,
Nice.
I guess I didn't mention this earlier, but I think that's also part of like what started the community and the interactivity is on my live streams, I would literally spend the time building the things that people were seeing on my screen, and so it caused people to chat, to be interested, to want to tune in next time to see like what's going to happen next with the overlay. So for me, it's definitely something that keeps people engaged, and then also like it's basically a way for people to get their name on their screen for a second, because I have the drop game. If you've seen it on my screen,
Yes, definitely.
they can drop emotes, and then if they land in the garden, it grows a seedling. Shout out to InstaFluff. He actually made Penguin Drop, which an influence seedling drop.
Sorry, it was a huge shout out to InstaFluff, another really awesome programming streamer here in the Live Coders team. Yes, there we go.
huge shout out. So and what I'll mention is a lot of people that were watching the VODs on YouTube were like, these overlays are really annoying. And they're like, can you do something without these overlays? I sort of made them a little bit more minimal. So now the drop game used to have parachutes. Now there are no parachutes. It's a little more transparent. And so I try to keep it's there, but it doesn't necessarily interfere with the coding that's happening.
Sure.
And so that's my opinion on it. And I would say, like, anybody that is attempting to get into live streaming, it really is a good way to get interactive with the chat. Like if you're looking for something to do, just like build a chat bot, build an overlay.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I've kind of taken the opposite approach. The one thing on my streams that I really like to do is, well, I guess one, I don't have a green screen. So it kind of makes things a little bit more difficult when you don't have something like that. But yes, as we see, CJ, that is totally his home. You live in an 8-bit world?
Yes, I live in a pixel house. Let's actually step outside for a second. Yeah.
We're right outside. Wow. Incredible. No, I love that. Yeah, that's one of the things. So once you have, you don't really have that, you kind of just work around it. And so, yeah, I like going for like the kind of simple stuff. The one thing I have been doing, as you might have saw if you were here at the beginning of the stream, I love making these little just videos of random stuff and then putting a blur effect on it and using it as a background behind content. Yeah,
that seems cool.
They come out really well. They look really nice, and it's just a way to see like, hey, maybe if you're on a be right back screen, you have something moving to show that it's active still. Which is so those are my thoughts for sure there.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is like if you see my my getting started screen and my closing screen, that is also meant to be like interactive. Like people are waiting for the stream to start, so it's like a little in a pixel animation, and it gets people interested before the thing starts. It's kind of like a little place to hang out before the actual stream starts. Yeah. So
that's really great. I think that's the same thing. It's kind of goes back to this idea of building community and kind of keeping people engaged, because again, this is live stuff, right? Like people don't come here just to, oh my God, live. People don't come here just to watch a video. Like they're here to interact with us, which I think is really great. Cool. Yeah. So let's go on to this next one here. Cool. Another one from K Petty. What do you think, which aspect of life should be programmed? I mean, there are social media stuff, traffic communication, health. What else is left for us to program in this world?
I'm waiting for like brain to computer communication. I know that some exist.
Yes.
But like legitimate, like I'm gonna get surgery to have this thing implanted in my brain, and now I can just think it and make it happen.
Yeah.
Also, that's kind of really scary because like most likely there's gonna be some corporation behind that thing that you implant into your brain, and then they're gonna be like injecting ads in your sleep.
Oh my God.
But like in an ideal world where there's a nice company that wouldn't do that, then it'd be really cool, like to be able to just think it and make it appear on the screen, that kind of thing. I think that would be cool. I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but
yeah, I mean, I think in a sense it does. There's still a lot of things in my opinion that are not programmed, right? Like there's still a lot of automation we can do in our lives, and automation is like incredible these days. You can do infinite things, set up infinite amount of like connections to do stuff, which I think is incredible. But I don't know if you've heard of Neuralink, CJ. So Neuralink is actually something that Elon Musk has put together. It is literally a chip that you are implanting in your brain. I think actually next month there's supposed to be a conference of test patients that they've had to control a mobile device. And so that's not far off. Like that's literally a thing that's happening now.
So I've seen external devices, and I have like a really rudimentary one with just one contact point.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called. Mind something.
Okay.
But the issue with that is like it's external, so it can only detect a certain, like it can try to detect your mood. They have some things where you can like move a ball just by focusing on it.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is like you can still do some pretty cool things just with things external. So that's why I'm thinking like if it's direct brain communication, like possibilities are endless.
Yeah. It's insane to think, like it's weird to think about thinking about something and then having it just happen. You know, I don't know. I don't even know what I just said, but the thought of thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think initially it could just be like, instead of having to type, I can just think the words and they appear on the screen.
Yes.
I still have to code the thing. I can't just like think of an app and it appears.
Right,
that's later on. We got to train the neural networks for that.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't talk about GPT-3, by the way, though.
We did not. We can hit on that if you'd like. Yeah.
It's okay if we don't.
Yeah, no, I actually find it really interesting. So go ahead.
But yeah, it was along the ideas of how like would Wix or any other website builder replace developers.
Yeah.
Like GPT-3 is super interesting because you can basically type out a human readable sentence. Like I want a website with a form that does this, this, and this, and it will like spit out a React app with Bootstrap in it. Yep. Something like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's 100% it. Yeah.
Okay, so like that's awesome. But if you've ever worked with real clients, you know that they are very picky. I mean, people are picky in general. Like you can say you want one thing and a developer will implement it in a certain way. And then you have a back and forth process of like tweaking it, making it more aligned with what they actually want. And I think that's what's missing from GPT-3 is like, okay, it spits out the website. Like, oh, okay, let's move that form a little bit to the right. Okay, can you make it pop? Like there's a comic out there that mentions a joke like that. Like clients will use like very vague language, and how is GPT-3 going to be able to understand that? Like, what does it mean to make it pop? Like how can we, like what code would need to be written to make that happen? There's a whole set of things that can't exactly be built in that way, and you would still need some sort of human intervention to like take it the last few steps, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of just brings it down to the same thing with music. You can literally make music via programming, but you're missing a lot here, right? You're still missing this idea of the human touch. And I think that's something that will never go away from these types of things, even though it may get close. One person I wanted to shout out was White Panther in chat. Her and Layla Codes It are actually talked about this exact thing you just brought up, CJ, in regards to dealing with customers, dealing with clients, and getting the specs for them, how to do it appropriately and how to really give the best for their customer in a talk that they did a couple weeks ago. So yeah, if you haven't, feel free to check that out. Shout out to White Panther.
Nice.
Yeah, good stuff there. Good stuff. All right, let's go on to this next one. Finicky Dev. So Finicky Dev says, have you ever had to code with a programming language that is not your favorite? Whether it was a legacy code or your boss thought it was the best for the project. How did you deal with this non-excitement about the language and still be productive? That's very interesting.
Yep. So if you've watched my stream, you will know that I actually don't like React very much. But I write React on a daily basis. I know it's blasphemy, but I write React on a daily basis. Like I know how to React, and I know how to write proper React. I know how to write good React. I know how to teach React really, really well, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Yeah. And so I guess for me, like the thing about React, I guess if I want to get specific, is like it taps that part of my programmerness that's like, oh, this is awesome. We can make this more functional, and we can start to like break these things apart, and then the code, like it's beautiful code. Look at all these cool reduces I'm doing and stuff like that. But like, is that actually good code? I don't know. That I would say like that.
That triggers good code.
that triggers that part of my brain, and so that's what makes me like not hate my life, even though I'm coding in React.
Sure.
So the excitement part, and I guess with anything, so like I've had to work on like WordPress apps, like in PHP, and I don't really like that. But I just try to keep it interesting. Like I try to and I think it's always that way with code. Like I want to make the code as best as possible. I want to make it better. I'm going to use the tools that I have to do that, regardless of what the language or framework is.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I am dying on the inside right now. Just a little TLDR about our channel. We've had this ongoing meme probably for like 5 months about Flutter. People are obsessed with Flutter. And so we have a command because we do work on React Native code, and Flutter is in that same arena, right?
Right.
Where people say, hey, have you ever tried Flutter? Or what's your experience? So we've had 274 people ask us about Flutter.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
I need a counter for whenever people ask, like, why are you using Vue? Like, why aren't you using React?
Yeah. So that is funny. I'm more on the opposite end. I highly enjoy React. I think it's a great platform. But again, tool for the job. Whatever you're used to, whatever you're doing. One thing that I actually did on more based off the question, at work I had to do a lot of manual work, and I wanted to write a script on my Windows machine. And I've never used PowerShell, like actually written a PowerShell script properly. So I'm like, I'm going to take this time to learn it. Yeah, it's not like the sexiest language out there, scripting system, but it did the job and I learned something. So kind of trying to keep it interesting and really focusing on this idea of how can I learn something from this? Even though it's something old, you will always still get something useful out of the language or out of the platform that you're going to use, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the viewpoint. Awesome. So this is a quick one from Avi. What programming language would you choose for a mobile app? I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, CJ.
I mean, because I'm familiar with web dev, I would like, and it depends on the app. Like, what native things are you trying to do? Because if they're really native things, then you probably should go native or use something like Flutter or React Native that is a bit closer to the metal. But if it's something simple, if it's just like a list app, I would choose Ionic, which is like a hybrid mobile framework.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good choice. I'm a big Swift guy. I love Swift and native iOS stuff. My go-to now is if you're building something small, might as well get close to the metal as possible. Might as well use something like Kotlin, Java, Swift, Objective-C, whatever is there. If you want to build something quick, something cross-platform, again, one of the many beautiful frameworks that we have out there in the world that can do that for you, which is great. So again, and tools. Yeah.
That's the thing I think about, like, especially when building things for client, because they want an iOS for clients, they want an iOS app, they want an Android app, they want a web app.
Yeah.
So like, and they only have a certain budget. So if you're using something like Ionic, there are other similar things, but you basically can build it once and it'll run in multiple places.
Yes. Yeah.
Of course, you have like platform specific code for mobile, but the majority of things are reusable. So
yeah. And one thing to actually hit on here as well, you can still build cross-platform apps using something like React Native and build native components that hook into that. So let's say, which is really great. So if you really feel like you need that really close metal or that really performant stuff, you can build it in the native language. So yeah, great stuff all around there. All right, next from Unhot, Pixelogic Dev, how did you create such a crazy high resolution green screen overlay? I'll never tell you my secret.
Am I pointing in the right direction?
Yes, that's beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yes. More high res, definitely so. Okay, and then from SQL Gordster, where do you host websites with SSL for a reasonable price? I don't really know much. I don't look much into this, but CJ, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Sure. So if it's a totally static website, you can use something like Surge, surge.sh. And whenever you deploy, they give you a Let's Encrypt free SSL certificate. Netlify is in a very similar boat where you can point it at a GitHub repo, it'll deploy it, they automatically add an SSL certificate to it. You can add custom domains, I think, for free. And then I also use Versal. So I'm throwing links in your chat. Let me do Netlify.
No problem.
And then Versal. So Versal, they can do static websites. And for that, they will automatically provision a Let's Encrypt certificate. And for custom domains are free too. So you can buy your domain elsewhere, point the DNS at Versal, and then when you deploy, they'll automatically create the SSL certificate and renew the SSL certificate, which is nice.
Man, that's incredible.
Yeah. This is the world we live in. It used to be you had to pay like hundreds of dollars a month to GoDaddy or whatever hosting framework or you were using for like a Commodore SSL certificate or something. But no, Let's Encrypt is a beautiful thing, and there are a lot of platforms that basically automate all of the stuff to provision a certificate for you.
Yeah, that's great. And I saw JitterTed also put Heroku, non-static apps, is a really good one. I've used Heroku a lot as well for hosting things. So yeah, great question, SQL. Cool. Next one comes from Finicky Dev. When joining a new team, a new job in general, what is your advice to warm up to the team? How do you speed up the get familiar stage?
This is more of just like a general life question than it is like working on a dev team.
Yeah.
I don't like listen. Like that's what how I always approach everything. Is just like listen first. Like understand how they communicate and how they behave around each other. Yeah. And I guess you sort of want to mimic that. I mean, you also want to be yourself, but you don't want to, be too far out of what they're used to. And I guess, is this question mainly about just like getting to know the people themselves, or is this also like getting to know the code?
Yeah, Finicky Dev, if you have any thoughts, definitely post it in chat. We'll read it. But in my opinion, I read this as getting familiar with the code as you onboard to a new team. Yeah.
Okay. The code. Okay.
Yeah.
I think, and if that's the case, just dive right in. So clone the repo. Typically the way I approach things, if it's like a totally unfamiliar code base, is and I guess if it's UI based, I don't know what kind of, it's a very general question. I don't know what kind of code we're talking about, but let's say there's one specific part of the app that you are going to work on or fix a feature or a bug for. Just do a string search. So if it's like a menu and you see a menu title, search the code base for that menu title to see where is it, like where like it might be in a dictionary file and it's being read in, but then you can follow the path to see where that code is. And so that's kind of how I approach things. Is like from the outside perspective is, okay, where's the thing I want to work on? Let's find it in the code base, and then let's figure out how all of that is hooked up.
Yeah, that makes me chuckle so much because literally that is my life. I think I've worked in so many different code bases in this past year. I just moved to a new team and I had this scenario and it was, all right, well, I see this thing here. I'm just going to do a Control-Shift-F for this everywhere. And then it's funny, but it's a roadmap. That's what code is. It just leads you right to where you need to go.
Yeah. So like this is used there. Okay. Who uses that? If you're in a statically typed language, there are some really nice tools that can generate dependency graphs.
Yeah, definitely.
So like when I was in the C# world, like, it was amazing what could be done. Like it basically could create an entire diagram of all of your classes and like how they're dependent on each other. And also all of you, if you had different libraries and DLLs, it would show like which libraries are dependent on each other and you could see the arrows. And then you could dial deeper into like which functions are called from one module to another. So try to find tools like that too, if you can.
Yeah, I agree. It's really incredible. It's really cool to see that as well, because you don't realize how much is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, another one from K Petty. What was the hardest thing that you had to translate into code? Not sure if I understand this question, but how did you perceive it, CJ?
Maybe it's like a client wants something built and you have to figure out how to build it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great.
If you have an answer, you can go ahead. I'm going to think.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think the main thing I notice about myself is when being tasked with something very generic, like build this menu for a like sign in flow or something, right? What do? You have this big idea of, all right, I need to build this thing, but then you need to understand what you need to do. So I like breaking things down in pretty small tasks, like to understand, cool, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need more information on A, B, and C. And then I just go in task by task and I don't feel as overwhelmed when doing it. Right. So on a personal experience, the hardest thing that I had to translate, I'm going to pass the baton. I can't think of anything.
I don't even know if I can, because like, I mean, I'm still employed and like I've built all the things they've asked me to build. and but it's
Yeah.
asked me to build, but it's always been a process. It's exactly like you said. You kind of just break it down. So like, you know that this is the thing you got to do, but you got to start smaller. Like, what's one thing I can do right now that's gonna get me there?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we can't really think of a specific project, but hopefully that answers your question, Petty, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So another one from Chevy Wood. Do you guys know Craft CMS? If yes, what do you think about it? Do you know Craft CMS?
It feels familiar. I'm gonna DuckDuckGo it.
DuckDuckGo it.
A flexible, user-friendly CMS. No, I haven't seen it. I'm guessing it's probably similar to. Is it? I guess it like an API first kind of thing, or.
Yeah, that's what it looks like as well. I also have never seen it.
Yeah.
But it looks like it uses Vue, so that's cool.
Oh, interesting. That's cool. I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. It looks like it's built on with some Vue. So, yeah, Chevy, hope that helps, friend. But yeah, awesome. Then from Inuk here, have you worked on adding features to languages, proposals, etc.? If so, how's the process, and did you like it?
Yeah, I'll say I haven't, but I have peeked into the RFCs and proposals for ECMAScript, which is the
nice.
Yeah, so the standard for JavaScript, and anyone can because they're open source. So you can actually read meeting minutes from the TC39 committee. You can read the upcoming proposals. You can learn about the staging process. So like basically a proposal goes from stage 0 all the way up to stage 3. If it's in stage 3, then that means it'll potentially be stage 4, which means it's implemented in the next round of things. It's interesting. I've never created a proposal myself or like had any say in any of them, but I have read them. And like that's also how you can potentially stay up to date on like what's going to happen in the next version of JavaScript or ECMAScript, because you can read these proposals and see what's currently stage 3.
Yeah, that's honestly really incredible. I've never looked into anything like that. It's not been something that I've been too big in, but I do agree. Like, that's probably, if you're really deep in using a specific programming language, it's probably good to be on top of that, right? Stay ahead. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find a link for the TC39 notes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, looks like we got about 3 or 4 more here. So, this is a great one. Sima Conti, is clean code a real thing? Is it?
There's a book, so it must be, right? There's a book called Clean Code.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's programming in general. It's always like it's a process. So like you try to make it as clean as possible, and then you potentially dirty it up a little bit, and then try again if you have the time. I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially like being a live streaming coder, like showing all of my code for the world to see, and seeing all the opinions in the chat about like, oh, why are you doing it that way, or shouldn't you be doing it this way? And I'm more and more just of the opinion of like, if it works, it's fine. Like, I mean, there's a time and a place. Like if you're on a larger team, of course, if you're trying to maintain code that's going to last a long time, then yes, you want to look at these things and make sure you have good variable names and make sure that the code is easy to grok and understand the flow of. But at the end of the day, if it works, it works.
Yeah, I love that answer, and I think this is for beginner programmers or people starting projects. They really get caught up on this idea of, man, my code looks like doo-doo. But it works, but like it doesn't look good. I don't want to show it to anyone, whatever. If you're working on something on your own, don't let the variable naming take up most of your time. Build the thing, get it out there, and there's always time for iterations, right? That's the best part. Like you literally can improve on your code with every rewrite that you do of certain sections.
Right. I used to tell my students this, like, for one, you are not your code, and the code you write right now is horrible. Like it is crap. But I'm not calling you crap. I'm calling your code crap. And you're going to realize this because at this point they had only been programming for like a month and maybe some self-study before that. So absolutely you're going to see some improvement after 5 months. And like the code you wrote 4 months ago, you're potentially not going to recognize. So like you're not your code. We're always improving. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love that. You're not your code, because you're not like, it's going to be write one letter and it's going to be in the past, right? At that point. So great thought. Cool. So next one from Isaac K1234. Have you guys tried HTML? I'm assuming that's a yes. Some people say that it's not a programming language, but some others say it is a programming language. What do you think?
Yeah, so HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it is technically a markup language. There isn't really a way to do logic like if statements or loops. There are frameworks and libraries that basically add on to HTML to make it do those things, but HTML itself is literally just markup. Yeah. So in the sense of that, it's not really a programming language. But if you look at HTML templates in a Vue app, it has if statements, it has loops, but that's not the core HTML language.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Literally nothing to add on that. That's exactly it. Beautiful. Cool. Beautifully said.
right along. Next one.
Yeah, right along. Blood Wastekin. Oh man, so sorry if I just destroyed that. Why does CJ stream while standing? Why do you do that?
It varies. So I do have an adjustable standing desk at work. I haven't been to work in months. I'm at home. Yeah. But for me, I used to stream standing all the time. And it helps me keep my energy up, right? Instead of just sitting down, it's I'm a little more lively. I can move around. I can point at the screen and do stuff like this.
Yeah.
So that I guess makes it entertaining. It also keeps me awake and because I have to work. It's it's not I'm just passively sitting. I am holding my body up with my legs.
100%. Yeah. I love that question. Yeah. Because I'm on the same boat. I'm standing too.
Ooh. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. I actually have. There we go. Wait, can we time this? Ready?
Probably we can try. Okay.
That's it. 1, 2, 3.
Was it good? I don't know.
It was slightly delayed, but it's okay. It's gonna look great.
Here's the thing. I like that we both went for 1, 2, 3 jump instead of 1, 2 jump.
Yeah.
You just assumed. Okay. I don't know.
There you go. It's all right. No one will have to see that. Please don't clip it. Anyways, yeah, I actually have a code or a point redemption in my stream for raising or lowering my desk, which I find really fun, and I think it's really great when standing. And it's just good for your back. I call it let's get our spinal fluid moving. You know, because when we're sitting 12 hours a day, if this is what you do all day, you need something to get up and get your juices flowing, I should say. Yeah. Definitely.
And yeah, I read a lot of papers and stuff about research that had been done about standing versus sitting while working.
Yeah.
I really don't worry about that as much anymore. It's fun to stand. I like standing. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And there's a balance. You can sit down when you get tired of standing.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That was a great question to unpack. Who'd have ever thought? Oh man. All right. Dad of Dom. Have you guys ever used error handling services like Sentry.io, or do you have any suggestions on monitoring errors in a production app?
I have not used Sentry. I've used LogRocket, which is more of front end logging. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could technically, I think you can use it for back end logging. Mm-hmm. But it's super cool. I mean, this is not an ad, but with something like LogRocket, you can actually replay user sessions and see what they were seeing in the app when things went wrong. You can see all the logs in the console. If you're using something like Redux, you can see the Redux logs. So it's super cool. And for larger apps, you probably want something like that because if you do have to debug something in production, having the logs and having a way of actually seeing what was happening when that thing happened is cool.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've actually used Sentry.io. One really cool thing about Sentry is if you have an open source project, you can email them and say, hey, I have this open source project. And at least a couple years ago, they gave you all of the monitoring for free. Awesome. So I would definitely reach out to them if you're interested in getting some free logging for your open source stuff. I've also used Crashlytics when it was separate from Firebase for mobile stuff. It is part of Firebase. I haven't used it. We will be using it soon though in our project. But in general, I think they all do kind of the same thing. It's an extremely powerful tool for monitoring how people use your app, why things are happening the way they are, and also just for general sanity of bugs and logs. So yeah, I hope that helps, Dad of Dom. All right, CJ, so it looks like questions just keep popping in.
This is what happens on my stream. I think now you know how I how I feel. They
Yes.
never stop. They never stop coming.
They never stop, which is great. This is cool, but we should probably set a time limit at some point. How about another 10 minutes? Is that cool with you?
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Beautiful. All right. So next one's from Avi12. If you could add a feature to JavaScript, what would it be?
I don't know. I guess private properties on classes, but that's actually coming to JavaScript. What I would do is potentially figure out how we could actually get the private keyword, because if you've seen it, the proposal is that there's a pound in front of the property name to make it private, which is weird. But they have their reasons. Like in terms of actually implementing it, they couldn't introduce the private keyword for some reason. But yeah, that's to me that's interesting because it becomes like syntactic sugar around closures. Because right now in JavaScript, that's how we do private variables is with closures.
Yeah.
Closures.
Closures.
So yeah, private variables. Actually, let me find that proposal really quick.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, while you're doing that, I personally don't really have anything. I feel like I don't use JavaScript enough to be like, I really would love this one thing. But yeah, private classing stuff would be fantastic. Is there a way to use static keywords in JavaScript as well?
Yeah, that exists now.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I don't know how long it's been there, but yeah, I knew that it was a proposal. I didn't realize that I could actually use it directly in Node. So like I think 2 Code Kata streams ago, we added the static keyword, so that's nice. I mean, like technically you can still do it without the static keyword, but it's cool to just have like static things. And there's also like getters now in classes, which is cool.
Oh, I did see that. That one's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. So the next one we have is from Springerman242. Should the front end and back end be in the same repo? I think this is definitely a more technical question, but if you have any thoughts on including stuff in a mono repo.
Yeah, I think it depends. And there are various reasons why you would do separate versus the same. If you put them in separate, they have totally separate commit histories, and so they're not intermingled. If you care about something like that, you also you potentially could have different deployment pipelines for each of those Git repos based on when they're updated, instead of having to have a mono repo where you have to update your deployment logic to make sure that you only deploy the backend if the backend has changed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is nice to for other developers to be able to just clone one repo and then they have everything and they can kind of get up and going from there. So it depends. The answer is it depends.
Yes. And for anyone who's wondering, it depends is always going to be the top answer probably, because it really does. It's all about your personal experience and how you do things. In my opinion, having 2 separate repos for backend and front end is pretty useful in regards to an open source project. I think it makes it a lot cleaner, though you get the caveat of what you kind of just said of now someone has to clone 2 different things. They got to set up 2 different things, environments. And I would dare to even say Docker containers would be a beautiful way to solve that problem, right?
Right. I will mention that I have had good experiences with mono repos, but it wasn't just front end and back end. We had like 4 different backend API servers, 3 different front ends, and having all of that in a mono repo made it really nice to be able to like share utility libraries and model classes between all of them, which is a lot trickier to do with separate Git repos. You have to have like private npm modules or Git private modules, I guess. But
yeah, no, that's a really good call out. The private module stuff gets a little hairy when you have to share stuff like that, but
yeah,
sweet. All right, from Zambizo. Have you read the Pragmatic Programmer? Do you know any books like it?
I have. I wouldn't say I've read it front to back, but the way you can read it is there's a lot of anecdotes, and so I always recommend it to new programmers.
Yeah.
Books like it. No, but there is this website. I'm gonna find it really quick, and then I guess you could answer if you've heard it.
No worries. Yeah. So when people usually ask me for books, I always tell them I actually don't read books that often. I have this problem, especially with programming books, where I start reading them and all of a sudden I'm halfway through and I put it down and I won't touch it for 6 to 8 months. And I'm like, I don't know why. I just prefer going through documentation and things like that. One book that I am currently reading, the name is escaping me right now, but I'm trying to get more into reading in general. Science fiction, fiction, nonfiction, whatever's out there. So that's what I got.
I actually agree about books. like, so when I started in my career, I was doing C#, and I had just like this fat C# manual book on my desk, and then also like a fat WPF 3.0 or WPF 4.0 book on my desk.
Yeah.
And like it was somewhat useful, but like nowadays, like things are changing so fast that you kind of need an online source. Like, yeah, like you kind of need an online source to learn the things. But for just like general, I guess like philosophy, those might be good books to have. And the thing I was thinking of is called The Codeless Code.
Awesome.
I just posted a link in the chat, but it's an illustrated collection of fables concerning the art and philosophy of software development, written in the spirit of Zen koans.
Wow.
So they're kind of like little like they're basically like fake stories, but they incorporate like monks and stuff like that. It's pretty entertaining, but also like they're good little pieces of information in there and takeaways.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I feel like I probably enjoy reading something like that more than something just straight code. For real.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, Roars, thanks for pinging me there. The book that I'm currently reading is called Algorithms of Oppression. And pretty much it's based on search engines and racism, to TLDR it. So
nice.
Yeah, it's been really good. I really like it so far. And it's just, I like learning more about that side of programming, how it's going to affect our personal culture and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So Anuvrat, how are you doing, CJ?
Doing pretty good. I guess I've been standing for 2 hours at this point. Currently, I'm standing on my right foot. I have my other foot on top of that foot. I think I'm going to switch foots.
That is so weird. I'm literally doing the same thing.
Nice. But other than that, I'm out of yerba mate. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I feel like this is going well. We're vibing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, man. It's really happy to have you here, honestly. It's been
Thank
great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. Mr. Demon Wolf, what's your favorite thing about being a developer? I love this question.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's bringing things into existence that were not there before. Like I can make anything. I mean, for the most part. If I put my mind to it, I can make most things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think for me, I'm on that same boat, but a little more specifically, the moment when you've been working on something for so long, and then all of a sudden you just kind of, you take that step back and you kind of look at the whole picture of it and you're like, whoa, I put so much effort and time and it's been fun and it just works. Like, it just works TM. That's all, what it's all about. Awesome, Demon. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah. Cool. So we got a couple minutes left here. Let's try to get a few more. From Sponge, what was the last change tech-wise that actually made you step back and say, wow? That's a good one.
I don't know. I really liked Vue.js when I found it.
Yeah.
And I guess probably, I mean, before that is when I found Angular 1.
Oh, nice.
And like I had been building apps with like jQuery, and I think maybe I tried a little bit of Knockout. But then when Angular came around, it really was like, wow, like look what I can do with very little code. Yeah. So yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I have one really from a long time ago. It's very recent for me, actually, which is very happy. Two things. GPT-3 blew my mind when I first saw it. I was, man, AI is so cool. And then the other thing was Raspberry Pis. I've been working on a Raspberry Pi the past couple weeks, and it just makes everything possible in the size of my palm. And that really has just been tech that literally makes me say wow every time I use it, and it's great. So yeah, great question.
Awesome.
Cool. So another one from Primosoma. I'm learning Reason ML. Do you think it's a good choice, or is it better to learn TypeScript? Thank you.
I'm not familiar with Reason ML. I guess, is it comparable to TypeScript?
I'm looking it up too. I'm not sure.
Let's find it.
Let's find out.
Reason lets you write simple, fast, and quality type-safe code while leveraging both the JavaScript and OCaml ecosystems. Oh, okay. So OCaml, I believe, is a functional programming language. Let me look up OCaml really quick. Oh, no. Is a general-purpose multi-paradigm programming language which extends the CAML directive of ML with object-oriented features. Interesting. So I've never written OCaml, and so I don't know exactly what it's going to offer. But I think that might be the reason why you would use Reason ML over TypeScript, because if you like the ideas in OCaml, and you'd like to use those in JavaScript and you want typing, then use that. Otherwise, if you just want types in JavaScript, use TypeScript.
Yeah.
I don't know. That is my quickly researched answer.
Yeah. I would probably don't have much knowledge I haven't heard of OCaml or ReasonML before. So good learnings. Yeah. Something to look into, but hope that helps for you. All right. Let's take one more question. I think this is a great way to end it. From Avi12, what is a personal project you are most proud of?
Yeah, so when I was a teacher, I would say my students because like, I mean, I realize they're not a project, they're people, but taking them and teaching them and mentoring them to become developers like is pretty crazy to see, because they were basically, they'd quit their lives for 6 months, they'd do this thing, and then they'd go start a new life as a software developer. So being able to see that happen so many times is pretty awesome. And then now probably it's just CodingGarden, like the community that I've built, the people that tune in, the things that we do. I'm very proud of that. Yeah,
I love that. It's cool because it's not always just a physical thing that you built, right? It's or an app or something. It's people. And I think mine's on that same boat. I really found a really nice community here at Twitch, and I love it. I feel like this is something that I hope grows more and more, and I hope I can meet cool people. Like I feel like I've met friends that I don't know, I'll know forever. I talk to people every day that I've never met across the world, and it's an amazing thing to think about with technology. But yeah, I would say that's it for me too. But wowza! All right, CJ.
Cool.
That's all about it. We did good. 2 hours 25 minutes.
We did it.
Shrug. Yeah, we did it.
I think it was like an hour and 15 of actual like the podcast, and then like an hour of questions, which is fine. It's always fun to answer question stuff.
Yeah, I think the questions are a really fun part of Twitch.
Can we do a virtual high five?
Yes. My hand is so much larger. Why?
I'm farther away from the camera.
Yeah,
I'm probably like 4 or 5 feet from my camera.
Fantastic. I love it. CJ, dude, thanks again for being here, man. Really appreciate it. One last thing for the few people here that don't know who you are. Where can we find you? What's your schedule? What's going on?
Yep. Twitch.tv/CodingGarden. YouTube.com/CodingGarden with CJ. That's me. And I stream 4 days a week. And my next stream is Monday at 7:30 a.m. GMT -6, which is
awesome.
6:30 a.m. Pacific time, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you go to my Twitch chat, type !commands, you'll find out so much more about me and other things as well.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, it's been a fun time. I honestly would love to do this again with you. So hopefully one of these days we'll have the opportunity. But chat, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. I think this will be a fun podcast thing. At least in regards to this podcast, we're doing it every other week. So 2 weeks from today, we're actually doing a Meet the Mods one. So all the mods of the Pixelogic Dev channel are going to come in. We're going to hang out. We're just going to chat, have a good time. Same concept, same flow. So CJ, my dude, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. I'm glad, man. Alrighty, folks. And to everyone else in chat, as I like to say, salute, y saludes to everyone. Yes, there we go. Salute, y saludes. Have a good one. And I will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.